it literally expands my perspective on things, like literally and immediately, because it makes me go beyond what I know is true. It's like, yes, what I know is true, and there's also this other side that is just as true. For me, low vibration is that it's a dark space. It's a space that doesn't necessarily feel good.
Okay.
You know, and again, that feel good, you know, a lot of people find comfort in dark spaces.
Yeah.
Low vibration has been so normalized in our, you know, don't get me talking about our music, but in our music, right?
Okay.
In our music, there's so much low vibration in our music.
Yeah.
It's almost as if we're being conditioned to normalize low vibration. So for me, low vibration, when I come across it or when I feel it in my realm, I feel it like in my gut.
Yeah.
It doesn't, this doesn't feel good. It'll bring me a little bit of anxiety, but it's a space that I know does not benefit me, does not suit me.
Malcolm-Jamal Warner is dead, drowned while on vacation in Costa Rica. But something about that headline just doesn't sit right, because Warner didn't just die, he left a warning. And now, fans are asking questions the industry doesn't want to answer. Why was he talking about Black erasure, cultural theft, and survival just 2 days before his death? Why does his final podcast sound more like a eulogy than a conversation? And why, like so many others before him, did his voice go silent the moment it started getting loud? This isn't just a tribute, it's a wake-up call, because what Malcolm said before he died might explain why he's not here anymore. Let's get into it. His final message wasn't just poetic, it was prophetic. 2 days before his death, Warner released an episode of his podcast, Not All Hood. It was different, raw, urgent. He talked about trauma, erasure, how blackness gets packaged, sold, and stripped of its truth by systems designed to benefit from our pain. And then he said something that hit hard, then and now. If for some reason you can't find a reason to smile, that's probably the best time to be the reason someone else does. It sounded sweet at first, but now it sounds like a goodbye in disguise. In that same episode, he reflected on a moment with spoken word artist Georgia Mee Harper. She challenged the name of his show, Not All Hood. Ain't nothing wrong with the hood, she told him. That moment hit Warner like a wave. He wasn't rejecting the hood, he was rejecting the way they portrayed it. He said the hood wasn't just where we come from, it's what built American culture. The rhythm, the style, the slang, the soul, it all came from a place the media tried to erase. The hood, he said, is not a curse. It's the engine.
Podcast is called Not All Hood,
Uh-huh.
and I couldn't even finish my sentence. Ain't nothing wrong with the hood. Ain't nothing wrong with the hood. And it made me realize that there could be a misconception that we're saying not all hood, saying that the hood is bad, but the concept is like what the media shows us is one side of, you know, black culture, and it's the hood side, and the hood side, you know, ultimately historically is what has always created American culture.
Sure.
Right? It gets co-opted
That's
from
right.
the hood, and then it becomes mainstream.
Exactly.
But if Warner was finally starting to say what he really felt, was someone listening? And did they want him to stop? This ain't the first time a black truth teller vanished. There's a pattern here, a disturbing one. Chadwick Boseman, gone, right after releasing films that challenged every Hollywood stereotype. Nipsey Hussle, gunned down, just as he preached ownership and community wealth. Dave Chappelle, almost canceled for walking away from a $50 million system built to control his voice. And now Malcolm-Jamal Warner, who wasn't just reminiscing, he was reclaiming. Through his podcast, he wasn't Theo Huxtable anymore. He was Malcolm, the man behind the smile, the artist, thinker, and warrior most people never got to meet. And in that last episode, he wasn't mincing words. He spoke about black soldiers being erased from Arlington Cemetery.
Black soldiers are hands down the most patriotic people walking this earth, because black soldiers, black military, these people are fighting for freedoms that they don't even get to enjoy.
In spite of so much.
There's a guy in our thread, he's a brother, and we were talking about the Arlington Cemetery, and how they're scrubbing the history of a lot of those soldiers. And his take was, if they were just considered American soldiers and not black soldiers, then they wouldn't have to scrub their history. And I said, but if you take away the fact that they're black, you're taking away the whole history of, at a point where they wouldn't let black men become soldiers.
Hello.
You're taking away everything that black soldiers had to do to persevere.
He called out black excellence as a myth tied to wealth and fame, then flipped it. Survival itself, he said, is black excellence. That wasn't an inspirational quote. That was an indictment. A message to every system that profits from black struggle but punishes black truth. So now the question is, was Warner's death just a coincidence, or was it something else? To most of the world, Malcolm-Jamal Warner is Theo Huxtable, the teenage son on The Cosby Show, goofy and lovable, full of charm and curiosity. For years, Theo was his entire identity, but behind the scenes, Warner was building something deeper. He studied black poets, became a Grammy-winning musician, directed TV shows, wrote books for black youth, and later created art that tackled mass incarceration, systemic racism, and cultural betrayal. He didn't want to be a star. He wanted to be real, and that's exactly what made him dangerous to the status quo. Hollywood likes its black stars smiling and safe. Malcolm stopped playing that role. He started asking questions, hard ones, like, why does black culture only matter when it makes money for someone else? Why do black creators get erased the moment they become inconvenient? Why does our pain get turned into profit, but our truth gets buried? Let's address the elephant in the room, Bill Cosby. Malcolm-Jamal Warner was just 13 when he was cast as Theo. Cosby didn't just give him a role, he shaped his life, taught him discipline, gave him advice, showed him how to stay grounded in an industry built on ego. So when the Cosby scandal broke, Warner was caught in the middle. In interviews, he didn't defend Cosby, but he didn't condemn him either. I can't defend him, he said, but I won't throw him under the bus. He said hearing the victims was painful, but watching his mentor fall apart, that was painful too. It was complicated. And that's what made Warner different. He didn't spin. He didn't hide. He felt. When The Cosby Show was pulled from syndication, Warner didn't talk about the money he lost, though he did mention it. He talked about what it meant to lose that image, that mirror, that cultural milestone. We've always had The Cosby Show to hold up, he said. Now, it's gone, and that's what hurts the most. But even as he grieved the show's legacy, he grew. He talked to co-stars, he listened, he evolved. He started separating the art from the artist, and that's something Hollywood still doesn't know how to do. For all his public poise, Malcolm-Jamal Warner's life was marked by private grief, the kind that doesn't trend on Twitter, the kind that shapes a man when nobody's watching. In the late 1990s, Warner lost Michelle Thomas, his former girlfriend and co-star on The Cosby Show, to a rare form of stomach cancer. They had broken up years earlier, but their bond never faded. When she passed in 1998 at just 30 years old, Malcolm was there, at her bedside, silent, present, devastated. He never paraded that pain for attention. He carried it quietly. And then came the second heartbreak, a very different one. From 2011 to 2013, Warner dated actress Regina King. It was high profile, black Hollywood royalty, the type of couple people rooted for. But the way it ended was brutal. According to reports, Warner asked Regina and her son to move out without warning. King later hinted he broke up with her on Valentine's Day and sent flowers with a note that said, "I still love you." She threw them away. That heartbreak didn't just end a relationship. It changed how Warner moved. He became private, guarded. A man who'd once written books for kids about responsibility now refused to share anything personal. And honestly, can you blame him? because one loss showed him the depth of love. The other showed him how painful it is when love becomes content. On a podcast appearance, Warner was asked about working with Meghan Markle on the show Suits. His response? Short and polite. She was cool, really nice. But then came the real moment. He was asked if he knew she was black. And without flinching, Warner said something that still echoes today. The great thing is, she knew. He didn't smile. He didn't elaborate. But that pause, that wait, it said everything. It wasn't a compliment. It was a commentary. Because what Warner was really saying is that Markle's identity was something Hollywood tolerated only when it stayed quiet. That being black enough was only okay if it didn't make the wrong people uncomfortable. And Warner, who'd spent his life navigating this industry, knew exactly what that meant. It was a subtle critique, but now, in hindsight, it sounds like yet another breadcrumb. He was leaving messages, the kind you only catch if you're really listening. When Warner died, the reaction from fans was immediate: shock, grief, and confusion. But from Hollywood, silence. No tribute specials, no coordinated condolences from major networks, no week-long memorial marathons, just a few headlines, some recycled photos, and a trending hashtag that vanished in 48 hours. For a man who helped define a generation, that silence was deafening, and it raised a painful question. Why didn't they mourn him? Maybe because Warner didn't play the game. He didn't chase fame or scandal. He didn't attend the right parties. He didn't beg for relevancy. Instead, he worked. He created, he elevated, and that kind of legacy, the industry doesn't know how to package it. When fans went back and re-listened to Warner's final podcast, the tone changed. What once sounded like poetry now sounded like prophecy. He spoke about stolen culture, how black soldiers fought wars they never benefited from, how the hood became America's cultural engine while still being vilified by the system. He wasn't just dropping wisdom, he was leaving clues. And the timing of it all is almost too perfect to ignore, because Warner had just stepped into a new season of truth-telling, a season where he finally said what he'd held back for decades. That black survival is not just resilience, it's resistance. That representation without power is just performance. That black voices are often loved right up until they stop entertaining and start challenging. And then he died. Accident? Maybe. But the more you listen, the more it feels like a message someone didn't want out. Warner's journey wasn't an accident. It was a blueprint. He escaped the child star curse not because he got lucky, but because he studied what went wrong. He avoided addiction, scandals, media traps. He protected his peace and built his art quietly, carefully. He published a book before he was old enough to rent a car. He won a Grammy for spoken word without a major label push. He turned his back on fame when it no longer aligned with his values. And in the end, he died right when his voice was becoming most dangerous. A voice that didn't just ask for attention, but accountability. A voice that was telling us what was coming before it ever hit the news. At this point, it's hard not to notice. Malcolm-Jamal Warner isn't the first. And if history holds, he won't be the last. Chadwick Boseman, Nipsey Hussle, Tupac, Left Eye, Michael Jackson, even Prince. Artists who used their platform to speak, really speak about truth, ownership, race, and system failure, only to be silenced when their message got too loud. Now add Warner to the list, a child star turned truth speaker, a man who played by the rules for decades until he didn't, until he started asking the questions that Hollywood never wants to answer. And when he did, his voice was gone. And here's the eerie part. He predicted it. In that final podcast, he spoke about how black culture is celebrated right up until the moment it demands justice, how systems praise our creativity but erase our struggle. Can you tell me the fate of a people who embrace the very traits placed on them by their captors, who are designed to keep them believing they're second rate? He didn't say that to sound deep. He said it because he knew. Warner wasn't just talking about legacy. He was documenting the cost of telling the truth while Black in America. Because once you stop being safe, once you stop smiling, once you stop playing along, the spotlight dims, the calls stop, the headlines dry up, or worse, you vanish, and people are left trying to connect the dots with candlelight vigils and what-if tweets. But Warner didn't want sympathy. He wanted change, and his last words reflect that. He told us to smile, not for the camera, but for each other, to be the reason someone else finds hope, even when we can't find it for ourselves. That wasn't performance. That was prophecy. Malcolm-Jamal Warner didn't go out ranting. He didn't rage against the machine. He left quietly, poetically, intentionally. And yet, it echoed louder than any scandal, because his whole life was a contrast. A man known for playing America's favorite son, while privately carrying its burdens. He didn't die broken, he died aware. And if we really want to honor his life, we can't just repost old Theo clips and move on. We have to ask the questions he died asking. Why is cultural erasure still so easy? Why are outspoken Black voices met with silence? Why does the industry profit off pain, but ignore purpose? These are the questions Warner posed with his final breath. Not through drama, but through truth. This wasn't just a tragedy. It was a test of how much we're willing to see. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Once you hear the warning, you can't unhear it. Malcolm wasn't just a man. He was a mirror, reflecting back the parts of our world we don't want to face. He called out systems. He challenged narratives. He redefined what it means to survive. And maybe that's why the tributes never came, because his message wasn't comfortable. It wasn't marketable. It was real. Malcolm-Jamal Warner wasn't perfect. He was private, quiet, sometimes misunderstood, but he was consistent in his truth and in his values, and in the way he chose to speak only when it mattered most.
I think there is a proactive effort that I'm realizing now that we all need to think about, not just the three of us, but even listeners, find ways to expose people to the power that we have, again, in practical terms.
Yeah.
Because we always hear, and it always sounds kind of esoteric and motivationally, motivation-y, that, you've got this power, so we have to use our power. There's power in numbers, and we as people have power. But I think to go beyond just that statement, I think we all need to do a better job proactively exposing people to what the power actually is.
So if you've made it this far into the video, you already know this story isn't just about Malcolm. It's about what happens when someone refuses to be boxed in, when they survive the industry, outgrow their image, and try to leave something behind that's bigger than themselves. That kind of truth costs something, and in Warner's case, it might have cost everything. So what you think? Was Malcolm-Jamal Warner's death a tragic accident or something far more disturbing? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear your take. And if this story moved you even a little, go ahead and like the video and subscribe. You've already watched this far? Let's keep this message alive together, because the only thing more dangerous than silence is forgetting.